Hello and welcome to the Converting Documents to Pixel Perfect Dossiers session. I invite you to share your thoughts and comments throughout the session in the chat box, but please post your questions in the moderated Q&A section so they're easier for us to keep track of. And with that, let me introduce who we have with us today. Jeff Cursell, Vice President of User Experience and Design, Kung Fu Chu, Senior User Experience Designer, and Alex Olvera, Principal Product Owner. So thanks for being with us, guys, and I'll turn things over to you, Jeff and Kung Fu.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Corsell. I'm super excited to be with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for attending World, especially sticking around for day two. I hope you had a chance to see Tim's amazing futures session. The really great stuff in there. Today, what we're going to talk about a little bit is modernizing your applications, right? So, what do I mean by that? A lot of you who have been with MicroStrategy for some time have the experience of using report services and developer, and you've built some incredible applications using report services documents. But those applications have some limitations around their scalability, as well as things like responsive behavior, accessibility, maintenance. Or maybe you have applications that are built in other technologies. Maybe they're custom grown, and you're thinking about maybe could I recreate this using MicroStrategy 2021? Maybe it's something in a competitive piece of software like Spotfire, or maybe it's something you've built in Tableau and you want to bring it into MicroStrategy. So what I want to talk about today is to try to help you reimagine applications using all the incredible features that we built into MicroStrategy 2021 in library and dossier. So we're going to talk a little bit about things you want to consider when you're thinking about modernizing your applications and moving them into the library dossier framework, as well as best practices on how to use the great new features that we have and design these types of applications so that they're modern and engaging. So just a little background, in 2020, we introduced what we called the Dossier Freeform Canvas. And this was revolutionary for our product in a lot of ways. But what it provided everyone was this amazing, super simple, intuitive drag and drop experience where you can build these incredibly elaborate, beautiful layouts, right? That really feel and look and function like a modern application. And your users, they expect modern experiences. They want them to be fast, they want them to be elegant, they want them to be intuitive and simple, but they also want them to be highly functional. And this really brought our the capabilities of Dossier inside of library to a whole new level. This video that's playing right here has been obviously a bit sped up, but you can see just from a glance, it's not taking my designer very long to put together an extraordinarily elegant application here. And they're doing it in Freeform Canvas. So what did it really introduce? It's the ability to control Z-index on different layers. So you can layer objects, visualizations, text, images, all shapes on top of each other to create these incredibly elegant backgrounds. But the beautiful thing about it is it's still responsive, right? So you can still follow that really great mantra we have with Dossier and Library of like build it once and deploy it everywhere. So let's talk a little bit about the things you want to consider when you're thinking about I want to build this new modern experience inside of library and dossier. What are the things I want to consider? So one of the first things we want to talk about is navigation, right? One of the things when you're creating a modern application is you got to think about the information architecture of it and how a user is going to move through your application. Now, library comes with a very robust set of built-in navigation and functionality for you. You don't have to do anything to take advantage of it. Just really by the nature of building your dossier, all that navigation is going to become available. It also includes incredible things like bookmarks, as well as collaboration, the built-in filter experience, and then the library landing experience itself. So that is one option you have. A second option is that you can actually build your own navigation inside of the dossier itself. So let's take a look at both cases, and we can talk a little bit about pros and cons of sort of going each way. So first, we're going to look at the built-in navigational capabilities and experience of library itself. So the great thing about this is library is a collection of all of your users' content, right? I don't really have to do anything to take advantage of it. I simply log in, I go to library, all the dossiers I have in my library are available to me. I can sort and filter the contents of my library very easily. And in 2021, we've created the ability to create custom groups. So you see here, I have a World 2021 dossier group. I have an operations group, a customer demo group. I also have a favorites group. These are things that I can just say, these are the dossiers I always want at the top because I'm always accessing them. All that just comes out of the box. On top of that, it's got very robust search capabilities that can search inside of your dossier and beyond your dossier, which is fantastic. It has a built-in notification center that has all of the different mentions and tags and things of how I've been working in collaboration across all of my dossiers, the ability to share it and more. It also has the ability to go in and look at the information for a given dossier. So here I can actually do everything from export it to share it to edit it, all from that one panel. Once you get inside of a dossier, dossier follows a very simple navigation pattern, which is basically chapters and pages, right? It's just like a book. So in here, you can see I've got 2 chapters in my dossier. There's 2 pages in each chapter, and I can just navigate at will just by going up to the table of contents. This works perfectly across web, desktop, and mobile. And it was optimized in mobile with a slightly different user experience specific to Android and iOS. So again, you don't have to do anything to take advantage of this. Just by building your dossier, you get all of this out of the box navigational capabilities. On top of that, you're also get the built-in filter experience, collaboration, sharing, all of those things without having to do any custom link creation or any sort of custom coding to make it happen. So it's the simplest navigation to take advantage of, and it's obviously the easiest to maintain because there's really nothing custom that you have to do in order to take advantage of all of this, right? So normally we recommend to most of our customers to use the out of the box capabilities because they're very simple and because they're so easy to maintain and access. But we do have some customers who really want to control more of their user experience in terms of the look and feel and its capabilities. So they want to create their own custom navigation. So I'm going to show you 2 dossiers where we've gone and created custom navigations with different experiences, and we can sort of talk about the pros and cons and the things you really want to consider when doing that. So here I have my smart business. This is my HR dossier demo, and you can see I've created my own custom navigation here on the left, right? So simply by clicking into any one of these tabs, I'm going to load into that tab. The navigation is stateful. It remembers where I am. And it's allowed me to create a very custom look and feel. And this is a beautiful application, right? This was originally designed for tablet, and it is fully responsive in web, which is actually what we're looking at right now, as well as mobile. And we'll show some responsive behavior in a second. So what are the things you'd want to consider when building a navigation like this? One is obviously scalability. If you were going to have 15 pages, this is going to be a slightly more difficult thing. You don't have the space to do that, right? So that's where the built-in navigation is a little more advantageous. But the second is going to be if you want it to be responsive and you want it to go to mobile. So here, this designer of this dossier has made a very interesting choice where they've chosen that when it goes to the responsive break, when it goes into mobile, that they're going to hide that custom navigation they've built, and they're instead going to default to the built-in navigation at this point. The reason that they did that is because their design paradigm did not easily translate into a phone's form factor because they designed the application primarily for tablet and web. They still wanted it to be available, so they were able to hide the navigation on mobile but keep it in web and desktop. And I will explain how we did that shortly after, because I'm sure there's some questions already. This second dossier example, again, beautiful layout, beautiful dossier, and what they've done is they've built a right navigation. And so in this particular case, it's sort of the same paradigm. They're using images in this case instead of text. And the function they're using here is called Dossier Linking. What it allows you to do is you can take anything, visualization, a text object, a shape, a picture, and you can create a contextual link between a page in a dossier and another page, or even a page in a dossier to another dossier, which is incredibly impactful, and it gives you a lot of options. But you can see here they've done something different. When this goes to its responsive break, whether it's mobile or in this case, just a very small window, it actually moves to a horizontal navigation across the top versus using the right navigation. So it's giving a high degree of control over that user experience and is fully functional across all the different consumption mediums that they're going to be using. Another thing to talk about with regards to navigation is bookmarks. So what a bookmark is, it's the ability to save a combination of all the items that are in the filter panel, plus all of your view filters, sorts, and the types of things that you see in the canvas itself, and save them into a single click. So what I've done here is I've gone into my bookmarks panel and I've loaded my Q1 Movies bookmark. You can see under the title of the dossier at the top, it says Q1 Movies with the bookmark. So I know that I'm currently viewing that stored view. And now I have all my filters are automatically applied and anything that I did on the canvas. So this allows me to just very quickly switch between different navigation and switch between different saved analysis looks, right, that I've created for myself, so that it's very easy for me to see the things that are important to me repeatedly, without having to constantly go through and change things in the filter panel. So this is another type of navigation. It moves from page to page. And the great thing about bookmarks is that they're shareable. So here I've created this view, and I'm going to send this to Keng Fu. And he's going to get this push notification right inside of library itself, and he can view the bookmark. And if he likes it, he can save it to his bookmark collection. And the amazing thing about that, which you may have heard in a previous session, but it's worth repeating, is that any changes that I make to that bookmark, King Fu will get updated automatically. So if I'm like the master of that kind of view and I'm constantly making changes, King Fu is going to be the beneficiary of those. So let's talk a little bit about how these were built, right? And so it'll give you an idea of exactly what you're getting into when you're creating these custom navigations, if that's really something that's important to you. Another thing that is worth mentioning here is that there's a new feature that's going to be coming in our first update of 2021, which is Dossier's homepage. And what that's going to allow you to do is actually, instead of having the default library landing screen, designate a dossier as the landing experience, so you could really get that true custom app feel, where a user just goes right into your app's landing page. So you can see here on the right, I've got my my layers panel open, and there's two groups here: Nav for mobile and Nav for web. So if you remember this interface, when it got small, it switched to a horizontal top navigation for mobile. So you'll notice the icons next to them. So Nav for mobile is hidden from the canvas. I'm going to show it really quickly. There it is. And then I'm going to hide it again. So I've hidden this from the main canvas, but you'll notice the one below it, Nav for web, is hidden from mobile. And what that basically means is that when this goes to the mobile view, the mobile navigation will appear and the other one will disappear from the canvas. And then all the responsive grouping and everything that I've created will actually behave very predictably, just the way I wanted it. So that's one approach that you can use to doing these custom navigations, is to create separate ones for both of your consumption paradigm. Let's say I didn't want to do that. Instead, what I wanted to do was a slightly different approach. So this is a simpler approach where the designer of this dossier is using text boxes on the left with images next to them, and using dossier linking with links created through those text boxes. So how are they creating the stateful navigation? What they've done is they've created a background image that actually contains the application wrapper and the state. And so each page in this dossier has just a slightly different background that actually aligns. And because of the responsive behavior we have and the positioning that's being used, regardless of the size of the screen, it all stays beautifully aligned. Now, they have made the decision in this particular case of hiding these backgrounds when they go to mobile. And the reason was, in that amount of small space, you would basically just have the navigation, and then all of your data, your visualizations would be below the navigation. So they just chose to hide it, which was actually a very good choice. And then they've moved to just using the default out of the box navigation. Now, these are just two ways that you can build custom navigation. There's many more. But I just wanted to give everyone, some neat ideas that if you're thinking about going down this route of true customization, how you can get started. So another major consideration you want to think about when you're doing this type of design is designing for self-service. So what do I mean by that? So modern applications, you may have a very diverse set of personas who are accessing these applications. They may have different needs, different jobs to be done, different job functions, and you're trying to service multiple persona types with a single dossier. And the challenge there can be, as I'm sure many of you have had, that you have stakeholders constantly telling you that they want data added to something, or they want data reorganized, or they want something removed. And it's very difficult to sort of win in those types of situations. And so a lot of the cases, this causes proliferation of objects, right? You keep making versions of the same dossier or the same report to service slightly different audiences. And now you have to maintain all of them when you're making changes to them, which is going to be very time consuming. So one of the great things we have now in MicroStrategy 2021 are the ability to use combinations of metric selectors, attribute selectors, in-canvas filters, and the filter panel itself to help users have a much more custom experience. So to take a look at this, what we're going to do is we're going to jump back into the demo dossier, and we're going to navigate to a grid. And this particular grid, it has, by default, it's just going to start with just a few columns on it. But what we want to be able to do is allow our users the ability to customize the grid to their own liking. So here you can see I've got supplier, item category, and revenue. So above it, I have item category, and then I have metrics, right? So I can open item category, and many of you have probably used this function before, which is an in-canvas filter. So here I can filter the item categories by whatever I want to reduce the number of rows that are returned. So to start with, I'll go and I'll just reduce the item categories, and maybe I'll just look at a couple different types of movies, and then that's going to make my grid a little bit smaller. But the second thing I can do is maybe that's not the metric that I want. Maybe revenue is interesting and it's part of it, but I also need to see unit price, unit sold, and cost. So by doing that, now I've added those columns to the grid, right? So you can imagine this over, dozens and dozens of metrics and attributes. Using combinations of these types of tools will allow your users to really customize the experience that they're having, right? And that's incredibly impactful, incredibly powerful. Another thing that is great about this is that it works with bookmarks. So right now I'm going to apply a bookmark to look at electronics revenue. What that's going to do is it's not only going to remember the selections in my item category and my metrics selector, but it's also going to remember selections from my filter panel. So once again, before we talked about how I could, use bookmarks to save custom analysis views and places in my dossier, which is true. But in this case, it's even deeper than that because now it's completely customizing the grid in different ways, all again in a single click. So if I had dozens and dozens of metrics, I only have to create the combinations I need once, save them as a bookmark, and then I can immediately return to those views. And then, of course, the great thing is I can share those with others to, again, help with adoption and sort of the proliferation of your BI applications. Another great feature that we've added in MicroStrategy 2021 is the ability to enable vertical scrolling on your canvases, right? This image here, I'm actually going to show you this dossier, and you may have seen a sneak peek of this earlier. It's an absolutely beautiful dossier of Kobe Bryant and his career, and it's an infographic, right? And sometimes we want to be able to make these incredibly stunning, very, very long infographics that people would scroll through. In a lot of cases, those are done in HTML, or you see them static in PDFs and things. But we now have the ability to bring that into Dossier. But equally, you might just not want to make an infographic. Maybe you just want to have a more traditional application, but you want to put more things on one screen than what the canvas can hold. Vertical scrolling is the answer to these dilemmas. So to start with, we're going to go back to the demo dossier. And what we're going to be able to look at inside of the demo dossier is this page here actually has vertical scrolling enabled. So I'm going to go and just scroll down a little bit. You can see there's a lot more content here. And as the designer, I'm able to control exactly, the relative sizes of all the objects inside of my canvas by setting a minimum height. And by setting that minimum height, that allows me the freedom to put as many items as I need to there without worry about them getting too compressed or too squished. And I can do that on an individual page, right? So you can actually see here that this is not taking advantage of it. I didn't need the space. But if I go back to the other page, I've now given my users the freedom to go down and explore all of this amazing content and not having to compromise because of all the great analytics and things I wanted to put in there. They have the space to be very highly functional and very, very usable. So it's a really, really exciting feature. But now let's take a look at an infographic, right? So this was the Kobe Bryant infographic. So there's a couple just incredible things about this. First of all, it's an absolutely beautiful representation of what you can do using vertical scrolling in combination with Dossier authoring in MicroStrategy 2021. You can see here that the infographic is still interactive, which is amazing, right? Typically they are not. But in this case, this is, and you can put whatever level of interactivity you would want in here. If you want to use attribute and metric selectors, you can do that. If you want to use in-canvas filters, you can do that, right? All the conventions, all the great functions and the features that you would use to build a dossier are, of course, available here. But now we're using them in a very, very different, very, very highly impactful and visual way by creating these incredible infographic layouts. So we can't wait to see what all of you are going to be able to do with MicroStrategy 2021 over the course of the year. And I'm sure when we have our dossier creation contest going into World 2022, we're going to see some absolutely stunning stuff coming from all of you. So really, really looking forward to that for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Hyper and Dossier. And so combining these two products is just so impactful, right? For those of you, again, who've been using MicroStrategy for some time, you may be familiar with something in our report services capability called an info window, right? And what an info window was is you could basically build a little popover that when I clicked or hovered on something, it would trigger a little popover window that could have additional information about that element. And we know that's a very popularly requested item. But one of the ways that you can do info windows that are, I would argue, even more impactful because they're usable outside of this dossier, is combining a dossier and a hypercard. So I'm going to go back to my human resources dossier. And what I've done here in this time is I'm going to enable Hyper. And by enabling Hyper, I'm actually going to be able to pull up an instant insight on top of the analysis I'm already doing in my application. So you can see here in my grid that all my company names are now underlined. And just by moving my mouse over the company names, I'm going to trigger that hypercard. So this gives me a whole nother layer of information on top of the great analysis I'm already doing inside of my dossier. So the great thing here as a dossier author is I could design a card specifically designed for this dossier and sort of distribute them, to say, okay, using this, turn this card on, or just have this card on and it'll trigger inside of this dossier. But equally, I can use this card outside of this dossier. So if the card is extremely impactful, they can trigger this in anywhere, right? Any web application you have, you could use Hyper SDK and embed this inside of other applications inside your enterprise. You could use it inside of Outlook or any other system that you have. So it's highly portable, but also highly impactful. So another thing that you really need to take into consideration is formatting, right? It's super important when you're designing these modern applications in library and dossier that you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the very rich formatting capabilities so that you're designing for an optimal, beautiful experience, knowing the form factors that your customers are going to be using. So are they on tablets only? Are they web and mobile? You want to take all that into consideration to make sure that you're using the right features. So to walk us through formatting, I'm going to hand this over to King Fu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ken Fu. Thanks, Jeff. I'm leading the design from the Dossier authoring experience. I work very closely with our engineering team to bring some of the coolest features, such like the freeform layout, the panel stack, and the infographic style dossier, or even the info window. I want to use this opportunity to talk about some of the challenge from our users and what are the best practices that you can do to iron out all this frustration. Creating a design to fit all sides was never an easy task. The thing I like the most, and I think it is the biggest difference between the dossier and the RSD document, is the ability to build a responsive layout. We want to create an experience where the user can create one design with the same amount of data, the same amount of contents. The design will adjust to different consumption platform. In the following session, I would like to show a real use case. In this case, our designer created this beautiful, elegant dossier. It looks good on one side, but later she discovered that the consumption experience was not that great. The text got cut off, the layers overlap each other, and all these visual issues could actually be avoided with a more knowledge of with a little bit of knowledge of the responsive design. So before we jump into the best practice, I want to talk about some of the high-level concept for the freeform layout. If you are coming from a web design background, you probably are already very familiar with these terms. We have this percentage canvas, meaning that with a certain range of the change, the content will try to grow and shrink to fit into the canvas. And we have this breakpoint, in our case, it's 768 pixels. When the canvas hit that breakpoint, the content, we have engines to lay out all the contents vertically. In the next page is an example to show when you are building a more complex dossier applications, it is very likely you will end up with a bunch of elements. You will have layers and layers. And this is where you want to utilize the responsive group to determine whether the screen elements you need to remain attached. You want to control the responsive behavior to ensure there's a proper visual and analysis flow. Next, it is very important to know there is the order from top to down, from left to right. We adapt this order to display the contents on the mobile device. And you will get a sense of how it works from our next examples. And again, this order to ensure the mobile consumption experience retain the layout and flow you want. You probably also noted that we choose to exclude 2 PPI wedges on this mobile design. And this leads to the next feature I want to talk about. In the lattice view, we introduced a new feature called Freeform form factor show high. It is our small step toward the bigger visions to empower the authors to further customize their consumption experience to all kind of device. With this feature, you can define what are the things you want to see on the mobile, what are things you want to see on the web. In this example, as Jeff just mentioned, I should create two different navigation groups, and I want to be that user to choose which one fit the best to users' behavior in different scenario. Now let's move to text. So text is a big part of any design. I know it is very annoying to see the text cut off or overlap with each other. And this issue is obvious when the authors create a design with a percentage-based canvas and later the font size is not responsive. So in order to address this problem, we add a small but useful features called auto size the font. So you can use this auto size to you can go to the format panel for any text box, and to enable this feature, you can have these features in 2021. And next, the more thoughts you put into the consideration about the text box placement, to avoid all those overlapping and to make things more organized, the more likely you will get a better result when the screen size is different. Next. We also have this new feature, new layer panels to help users to organize their contents. It's very different from the document tree from the RSD. You can actually drag and drop the layers to change the Z index order, and you can group the layers. You can hide layers. There are many ways for you to organize your contents in your elements in the dossier. And there are more improvements we want to do and to polish our author experience. For example, you can use the keyboard shortcut, and as Jeff said, we are doing some revamp on our format panel. So they are just some of the couple examples to show our effort toward a more modern and more intuitive author experience. Finally, this screen shows us a small tip to show how you can remove the distractions on your design. You can go to the file menu and format and dossier formatting, and to disable the highlights on hover. This is extremely useful when you want to have your design to blend in with the text, the image, and the graphic. And other experience is a key to a great dossier success. In the end of this slide, we will also include a list of best practice articles created by me and some other product managers. I encourage everyone to go there, take a look on our community website. Let us know what you think and what are the features you want to add to Dossier. I can't wait to see all those great work and fun projects created by this new feature. Now back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, King Fu. Yeah, those are some absolutely fantastic tips, and we will give you a link at the end, or a list at the end of some really great knowledge-based articles you can take advantage of to learn more, as well as all of these great fundamentals that King Fu just went over. So we're going to take a quick look at what's coming in 2021 in terms of some highly requested things that we wanted to talk a little bit about, things that are going to, again, help you reimagine existing applications, regardless of whether they're already in MicroStrategy in a different technology and you want to move them into library and into Dossier, or if it's something that's in another system. So one of these things is panel stacks. Those of you who have been with MicroStrategy for some time and have been building report service applications are going to know what a panel stack is. But to just at a high level, what a panel stack is, it's essentially a stack of different layers that each contain different visualizations, and it has a way or a built-in navigational control that allows you to move through them. So fundamentally, it allows you to stack lots of different things on top of each other and then use navigation to move through them while all sort of staying on the same screen. So in Dossier, we really reimagined panel stacks, right? We understood how, of course, they worked in report services, but we didn't really feel that that met the needs of modern applications. So we sort of re-envisioned them initially as what we would call a multi-visualization container, which is really a container that I can simply add pages to, and it has different visualizations inside of it. But then we decided that wasn't good enough. And what we really did is we created a mini canvas. So here's a sneak peek of what we're doing with panel stacks. So what you can see here is I have a navigation just under my KPIs here with 6 elements inside of it. I just used a in-canvas date selector to filter it. I have vertical scrolling inside of that area. And then above it, I have the ability here to click on a visualization inside of it and zoom and then return. And then I have a navigation. And by clicking an element inside of this navigation, it changes that entire canvas layout. So I can have combinations of grids and visualizations, text objects, images, HTML containers, maps, whatever I want to put in here, and I can have them all contained within a single screen. So instead of breaking these apart into different dossier pages and then breaking analysis page by page, I can have common groups of visualizations and data points that are all connected in a single type of analysis and put it all together on a single screen. Another great thing about our sort of reimagining here with these multi-visualization containers is that I have the ability here to actually make it responsive. So here, what I've done is this was actually on a tablet, and what I've done is just sort of split the screen, and you can see now that it's completely responsive. So the controls for the panel stack move from a left navigation to a top navigation. Similarly, if I wanted to have this experience in mobile, I'm going to have a similar paradigm. So underneath my KPIs, you remember the main screen, there were 6 elements. They're all there, right? Except that now I can scroll through them. So again, we wanted to design this in such a way that when you have your selectors and you have your stacks of visualizations, it would be 100% responsive with as little effort as needed, but still give you all that amazing control and all that amazing customization. So we are super, super excited to get our reimagining of panel stacks into your hands to see what you can do with it. And right now, we are hoping to deliver this new feature at the end of Q1 in our 11.3.1 update. So we are really, really excited about this feature. So here are just some knowledge base articles. So feel free that this recording, of course, will be available to everyone after World, and then of course, again, you can feel free to take a screenshot. But these are some knowledge base articles and that you can find on our amazing community website that just contain more detailed information about some of the best practices and some of the design considerations that we went over today. I have had the privilege of working with many of our customers in this past year, helping them reimagine applications using our modern technology, using library, using Dossier. And some of these have been tablet applications, some of them have been designed for web, some of them are purely mobile applications. And the results and the things we've been able to help our customers create have been absolutely incredible. So if you want some help, or if you're looking for inspiration, go to our community site, participate in community, read the knowledge base articles, take advantage of our education. And definitely, if you want to begin this journey with our help, engage our professional services organizations. We would be more than happy to help you look at your current requirements or ideas you have for applications, or even existing applications that you want to bring into MicroStrategy, and help you reimagine those. So thank you very, very much for your time today. And I think we've got some time left to answer some questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff and Kung Fu. We actually have a lot of questions coming in. So let's get started. First one, are you suggesting that clients completely rebuild their documents slash dashboards into dossiers?
So these are decisions that are entirely up to you, right? There's no reason to just, if you have a really awesome application that you've built in RSD and it's serving the needs of your business, then we're going to continue to support it, right? I think that we're focusing all of our future investment, and really where a lot of our new technology is being built, is inside of library and dossier. So what we're looking at is helping people reimagine how those applications would work inside of our new technology stack, right? We have a lot of new and exciting features that we've delivered into library and into dossier that are very, very, very powerful. And as Tim noted in his keynote, we're kind of on that, we're still on that journey, right, of bringing and reimagining some of the things that only take place in developer and bringing them in the workstation. So sort of workstation, library, and dossier really sort of represent the next generation of MicroStrategy. So we really think it's a great idea to start thinking about, if I have these legacy applications, how would I want to reimagine them inside of the new technology? How could I take advantage of the new technologies and the new things that are inside of library and the new things that are inside of dossier to make my applications even stronger. And it's also worth noting that with SDK, embedding is also a very, very, very powerful option, right? The ability to design these dossiers and embed them directly into your business applications using all the great things that you've seen throughout World.
And if I can add something quickly to that, we're also looking into making sure that you're still able to create or expand your existing applications if you want to develop new screens or new parts of your application based on Dossier, right? And being able to link seamlessly between Dossiers and documents with things like contextual linking, which is a feature that became available in 2020. And we're looking to ways of continuing to enhance that so that you can create these hybrid applications in both web and mobile. And so you definitely don't have to go and rebuild, many documents. Instead of that, you just keep expanding on Dossier, if you will.
Great, thank you. Next question. If I have a document that passes prompt filters to another report, will Dossier support that function? i.e. the document has some summarized data, and to drill down to specific products and customers, they can click on that line and send it to filter those two values on a prompted detailed report. It's a long question. So
Alex, you want to take a swing at that first?
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty much very, very related to what I was just mentioning about contextual linking in Dossier, and that's exactly what it allows you to do. It allows you to link to another object, and when you click on a data point, you can pass that selection as prompt answers, and so then you go from a higher level of aggregation to you can enable kind of like drill down scenarios, right, to go into a more detailed level of analysis. So yeah, that's definitely possible with Dossier.
Great. Will the in-canvas filters now be shareable in the collaboration chat?
So it depends on how you share it, right? So it depends on what you mean by in the collaboration chat. So one of the things that was introduced in 2021 is discussions. So there's basically two things inside of collaboration. There's the comments, which is at the dossier level, and then there are discussions, which are private collaborations. So either way, if you were to use an in-canvas filter and save a bookmark and share the bookmark in collaboration, that would be shareable. So I think the answer is yes. If you're referring to just the filter, just embedding the filter, I don't believe they would be passed. I think the filter is just going to pass the contents of the filter panel. So, but with bookmarks, yes. With just embedding the filter, no.
Great, thank you. Will transaction services be enabled for dossiers?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So with transaction services, we've been taking a very close look at transaction services, how they work in report services, and most importantly, how our customers are using transaction services. What I can tell you is that we are taking a look at reimagining transaction services, right? So the functionality is absolutely critical to our path and to our roadmap and what we're trying to do with MicroStrategy 2021. What we're trying to figure out is how is everyone using transactions and how can we make them better, right? And how do that making a better version of it inside of Dossier, and not just Dossier, right? One of the great things we've looked at, for example, that Tim touched on last year was this concept of hyper triggers, right? And this idea that I could actually embed a trigger in a hypercard to activate or target a business flow, right? So that I could get instant insight, click something, and then actually move into a business process. So I think the answer is absolutely we are looking very closely at transaction services and how do we reimagine them as part of library and Dossier. I don't have any answers on timelines for that, but I can tell you that as an organization, we're absolutely looking at it. And Alex, feel free to add any thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add except that as product owner, yeah, I mean, I've been into several meetings in the last weeks because that's one of our primary goals, right? As we want to, enable more customers to adopt Dossier over documents. And again, documents are not going anywhere, right? Like we're going to continue to maintain them. But like Jeff said, Dossier is the place to focus new investments in terms of developing content, I would say, because that's where our newest technology is and our biggest investment is going to. So we definitely want to enable as much people as possible to continue adopting it, and transactions is at the top of that list, right? Other things like panel stacks and info windows and things that documents have are definitely priorities, but transactions is probably the highest one. So it's just a big project, but we're definitely working on it.
Great, thanks. Next question. What is the best way for me to convert existing RSD documents to dossiers without having to recreate them from scratch?
So let me take a quick stab at this one. So unfortunately, we don't have like a tool that will do that conversion automatically. The reason is that the document, structure is like much more complex and very different to Dossier. So there's really like not an easy way to do like a direct mapping or conversion from one to the other. We wish it was possible, but just the technical nature, right, of both products, Dossier being like a much more modernized interface and a different structure, doesn't allow us to get there. Or maybe we could provide one, but it would just address like a very narrow set of use cases to justify, wouldn't have a lot of value. So no, I think I would go back to what we mentioned before. I think there's no need to convert those documents if they work correctly. And it's more about just switching the investment into Dossier as much as possible, right? And it's going to be a gradual transition, but you should be able to have a full stacked application that works in web and mobile that is built on top of documents and Dossier.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I mentioned I have worked with many customers in 2020 on just that adventure, right? Basically, they have these custom applications. Many of them were in report services. Some of them were other technologies, but they wanted to bring them into library and Dossier. And when you're talking about converting, I would really encourage everyone, if you're thinking about making that journey towards modernizing your applications, it's not about converting documents to dossiers. It's reimagining, right? It's a completely different technology stack with completely different capabilities. That's one dossier consumable across all form factors. There's a lot more things you can do with it, and so I would really encourage you to sort of maybe just take a step back from your current design, kind of look at it holistically. Like think about what are the jobs to be done for the personas who are using that application, and then if you really can come to an understanding of what is Dossier and Library in 2021, and really get comfortable with all the different capabilities that it has, you may sort of reimagine that application differently than thinking about it as a one-to-one conversion.
Thank you. Does adding multiple panel stacks to a dossier affect performance at all?
That's a great question. I'm going to let Alex take that first, and then I'll definitely, yeah.
Sure. No, just quickly. I mean, so short answer would be no, but I think all you have to focus really is on the amount of visualizations that need to be executed, loaded, and rendered at any given time, right? So, but just to give an example, a page, say, with vertical scrolling, so that they can be very large and you can fit a lot of visualizations. And let's say that you throw 25 visualization containers into them, assuming that they have the same amount of data, the same visual complexity. If you just all throw them in 25 panel stacks or 25, or panels with 5 panels with five panel stacks with 5 panels each, say, there won't be any difference in performance. In fact, we're looking, as Jeff was mentioning, on the panel stacks feature, which is coming up, hopefully in an update release for 2021. We're actually looking in ways to further optimize so that when you put visualizations in panels that you're not visualizing in that moment, there is no need to load them. And so I would argue that actually you would probably have better performance in that way, right? By distributing things in different panels and different panel stacks. So.
Yeah, and then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but once a panel stack, it's if you had a panel stack and you had multiple pages inside of it, each time that you trigger one of those different panels, it's going to get added to the document cache. So you only pay that tax once, and then just by navigating through it, it's just going to be lightning fast in the same way that moving from page to page to page in a dossier is hitting the cache and it's lightning fast. So the performance, I agree with Alex. It's just really dependent on how many things you're putting on the page, and that really isn't a panel stack thing. That's just sort of an overall design thing to consider.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right. I think we're actually out of time. So I'm sorry if we had a lot of questions come in. So I'm sorry if we didn't get to all your questions. But a big thanks to Jeff and Alex and Kung Fu for this session. And our next session will begin at 4 p.m. on accessibility and 508 compliance. Thanks, and everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.